A toolkit on the Clean Fleets Action available on NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities website. And if the community has gone through and engaged with this action and completed it, or if your community has already completed this action by having an alternative fuel vehicle or a charging station within your community, there's a really great form that your community can fill out to get credit for this action. So it's fairly simple. You can find it on the toolkit for the Clean Fleets Action, and it's very simple and easy to use, and it's a great thing to be able to submit and get credit for this action. So if you ask your clean energy coordinators how to access and submit that form, or we can certainly send it to those who are interested after today's webinar. There's also a lot of funding and financing opportunities related to this action, including NYSERDA's energy efficiency program. There's a charging station program within that program that we actually do have a representative from NYPA on the line today who can answer questions if anyone has questions about that program during the Q&A period. It's a wonderful new offering. So the DEC Municipal ZEV Rebate Program, which Nancy Welsh from the DEC Office of Climate Change will be talking about in just a few minutes. And there is NYSERDA's Truck Voucher Incentive Program, which is also another offering that we'll hear a little bit more about today on today's webinar. So lots of funding and financing opportunities, also a plethora of benefits just beyond those for engaging with this action.
Well, we're having a little bit of a sticky moment here with the slide, but we'll keep working on that there.
If you're truly interested in engaging with the Clean Energy Communities program or getting more information specifically about the Clean Fleets Action, I suggest you visit the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities program website. All of the details of everything that I mentioned today are also available in the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities program guidance document, which is available at that link right there. And then we also advocate that you do connect with your regional clean energy coordinator. We have a lot of great people here in the Eastern Upstate Territory. There's a lot of great people across the state who can really help your community move forward. So please do visit that link and connect with your clean energy coordinator today. We're happy to help, and we'd love to see you engage with the program.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
Great job. Our next speaker is Nancy Walsh of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning, Pat, and good morning, attendees. Thanks very much for having me. I'll start with my first slide. Thanks. I'm here to give an overview about the Municipal Zero Emission Vehicle Rebate Program that DEC is offering right now, and that Robin alluded to moments ago. This offering was made possible by the expansion of this year's Environmental Protection Fund. There was a new Title 15 added to the EPF for climate smart community projects, and among other areas of work, you'll see that clean vehicle projects was one of those areas. So next slide, please. So the clean vehicle projects, these are rebates available to municipalities. Municipalities signed under the program are city, county, town, or village of the state of New York. And we're covering both areas of the clean fleets activities that Robin talked about as part of the Clean Energy Communities work. The rebates can cover purchase or lease of eligible clean vehicles and also cover costs associated with installation of eligible charging or fueling infrastructure for eligible clean vehicles. And I'll go over the parameters of each of those one by one. So for vehicles,
is that okay? That's one?
Absolutely, you did it great, and I just kept going.
Nancy?
Can you
hey, hang on, folks. Nancy, there?
Hear me?
I sure can. Are we right slide for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So long if we're good to go.
You bet.
So for the vehicle purchase or lease rebates, I noted on the previous slide, no need to go back. It is for purchase or leasing, although the lease term needs to be a minimum of 36 months. New York doesn't have a list of eligible vehicles specified in the legislation. What we have is a definition of what an eligible clean vehicle is. There's a more extensive definition in the legislation, but I've highlighted a couple of items on the slide here. The things I want to point out are the idea that it needs to be a vehicle that can be recharged from an external source of electricity. So this is important, for example, in terms of hybrids. So a plug-in hybrid would be eligible, but a conventional hybrid would not be. Also, I want to point out the part of the definition about maximum speed capability. Needs to be at least 55 miles per hour. That does eliminate what some people call neighborhood electric vehicles or low-speed electric vehicles like the GEM Polaris. So that's something to note. It also does only cover vehicles that are primarily intended for use on streets or roads or highways. Factors associated with the parameters of the vehicles, they must be purchased or leased at a dealership within New York State. You can cover for the vehicle rebates only costs going back to April 1 of this year. So perhaps you already made a purchase. If you made the purchase and had it delivered on or after April 1, you can submit the information for the rebate. Next slide. A few money numbers associated with the vehicle rebates. We have up to $750,000 total during this round available for the clean vehicle rebates at this time. Amount of your rebate would depend on the electric range of the vehicle. So it's up to 5,000 maximum if the electric range is 50 plus miles, and then half that for vehicles with an electric range of 10 to 50 miles. Next slide. Moving to the infrastructure rebates. Again, a definition. Eligible infrastructure projects are going to be serving to charge or fuel those eligible clean vehicles that we just discussed. These projects need to be primarily for public use, so that needs to be taken into account. It's not meant solely for municipal fleet charging, but for public use. A rate of up to $250,000 per facility is available. Next slide. Infrastructure rebates have a couple of different parameters. The infrastructure rebates is associated with a match requirement. There needs to be a 20% match on the rebate amount that's requested. We've set aside $1.25 million for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. That encompasses what's called EVSE, or electric vehicle supply equipment. That's just your standard charging station. So the fast charging stations, the DC or direct current fast charging, can also be covered. Hydrogen fuel cell infrastructure can also be covered. We've set aside in a separate category $1 million for those projects. Next slide. For the electric vehicle charging infrastructure, not the hydrogen, but the electric vehicle, a couple of more parameters. We had some cost containment parameters that were decided upon. So up to $8,000 per port for an EVSE installation, or up to $32,000 per pedestal for a DC fast charge is what the state will pay. So you take your total project cost, divide by the number of ports, for example, for EVSE, and New York will reimburse, assuming all eligibility requirements are met, up to $8,000 per port. Anything above and beyond that would be the municipality's responsibility. We are asking for level 2 networked EVSE, although we do still think that those numbers apply. You also ask for a rebate for up to 2 years of the actual electricity cost for charging, as long as you've documented what you to submit in your application to justify that. Next slide. All right, a couple of just more process-oriented things. These rebate awards are essentially a first-come, first-served process until the funds are exhausted. The Clean Vehicle Purchase or Lease Awards are definitely just solely first-come, first-served if you're eligible. The infrastructure is also more or less first-come, first-served, but in addition to being eligible, we also have a list of criteria about the infrastructure or the site location or municipal planning associated with their EV strategy. You need to accumulate a minimum number of technical criteria points, and then at that time, your rebate would be put into the award pipeline. Next slide. Important dates, the categories I mentioned where I said there was $750,000 for vehicles, $1 million for hydrogen, $1.25 million for EVSE. After December 31st, those walls between categories are going to collapse, and then all remaining funding up through March 31st, 2017 will be awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. If you absolutely know that you have costs in a given category and you want to make sure you get money that's been set aside for that category, it's better to apply sooner rather than later, although we will be accepting applications through March 31st of 2017 as long as there's still money available. Next slide. I have just a couple more slides, and these are mostly just to help people get comfortable with the Grants Gateway, which is where the rebate program is being offered. So how to apply, something that you need to know up front, and if you're interested, you should start on now, is that you need to register for the Grants Gateway, and this is a snail mail-based process. So there's the website address here and the instructions. Everyone can go back and look at this later. But the websites are here, and just remember it's a mail-in process of a notarized form, and then you'll get your credentials via email. Next slide. So just to also increase comfort level with the gateway, because I am finding that people are having a little bit of difficulty sorting through all of the information that is on the gateway and on the grant opportunity portal. You see the web address that corresponds with that web address. My green arrow to the boxes there, just the registration form is available at that link. It's in that top box. And then that second green box, I'm pointing out that there's a user guide for the gateway and also what they're calling a quick start guide for starting an application. So those are useful resources if and when you decide to access the opportunity. Next slide. Previous information was mostly geared towards just getting yourself registered for the gateway if you're not already. Start that process now, but you can still look at the opportunity in the Grants Gateway Opportunity Portal. This website here gets you right to the Opportunity Portal, and these are the instructions to get you right to the opportunities. Next slide. So a bit of a cluttered visual picture here, but again, just for comfort level, because it's a little daunting going through all the different screens on the Opportunity Portal. But that address, you see it right here. If you go to that address, you'll be on the screen labeled 1. Whoops.
Yes, sorry, Nancy.
That's okay. You'll be green labeled 1, and again, I have a couple of green arrows pointing to boxes. If you simply want to look at the 2 ZEV opportunities, you hit that search button right there in that bottom box. That'll bring you to the 2 screen. I know it's small, but it's just there so you know you've seen it before. You'll see some search boxes. You type in ZEV, that will bring you to screen 3. And you see that it's now brought up down at the bottom the 2 different ZEV opportunities. That gets you right to the vehicles or the infrastructure. You click on whichever one you want. Next slide. bring you to a screen like this. Each opportunity has a page like this. It gives some basic information about a grant program, a description of the grant program. What I'm highlighting here with my green arrows and boxes are on the left side, you see the box View Grant Opportunity. That's how you get the request for applications for whichever ZEV opportunity you want. There's one RFA, but two of these pages. So you can View Grant Opportunity. You can download the PDF of the request for applications. On the right there, that box is around something called Questions and Answers. There's a PDF document of questions that have been asked by potential applicants and the answers that have been provided to them. So there's a lot of information in there about some of the finer details. And I can prevail upon you to just go back one slide. This is all I have to say then. So on screen labeled 1, that arrow up at the top, on the left-hand side, that box is something that says Grants Gateway Login. So once you actually have your credentials, that's where you log in, you put that link, and then you can go back to that next slide one more time. And I promise I won't make you change anything else then. And then once you've logged in, when you're on this page, that View Grant Opportunity button down at the bottom becomes an option to apply for grant opportunity. And then there's instructions and materials that will guide you and help you take it from there. One last slide, I think. And all of my contact information and the mailbox for the ZEV rebate program. I know that was an awfully quick overview, and there are more details to dig into, but I'm happy to answer any questions in the Q&A for this webinar, and please don't hesitate to contact the program or contact me at either our phone number here or at the ZEV rebate mailbox. Thanks.
Nancy, thanks so much. That's really great news, the rebates. Before we get to our next speaker, I'm going to unmute you, Jen, in just a moment. A couple of housekeeping notes. In the mysterious ways of webinars, we're in a lovely conference room here in Albany, but from time to time, our ability to hear you cuts out. It's very occasional. And so that's why I appear to be speaking over Nancy Welsh, and I apologize for that. Second housekeeping note, Jen Saponis, is that I'm unmuting you now, and your teammates, Christina and Barry, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to bring them in as speakers. I believe they're registered as attendees and not panelists. And so when I get to their slides, I will make every attempt to convert them from attendees to speakers, but you may have to do some slides for them. Sure. Good morning, Jennifer Saponis. Jennifer is the U.S. Department of Energy Clean Cities Coordinator here in the Capital Region.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about one of the resources available to communities to achieve the high impact item of clean fleets. And myself, Barry Carr, Christina Pachichia are three Clean Cities coordinators that are in the Eastern Upstate region, available as a resource. Next. This is a program within the U.S. Department of Energy's Vehicle Technologies Office, and our mission is to address the energy, economic, and environmental security of the U.S. by supporting local actions to cut petroleum use in transportation. And the benefits of the program include reducing petroleum consumption in transportation. Transportation accounts for more than 70% of our nation's petroleum use. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and reduce dependence on imported petroleum. Many alternative fuels are domestically produced, so supports the local economy. Next slide. So Clean Cities has kept up with rapidly changing industry on its mission to cut petroleum use, and the program's activities fall under a trifecta of strategies: replacing petroleum with alternative fuels, and we are fuel neutral; reducing petroleum consumption through smarter driving practices and fuel economy improvements, and eliminating petroleum use through idle reduction and other fuel-saving technologies and practices. Next slide. There are four major parts of the Clean Cities local and national partnerships: information and education, technical and problem-solving assistance, and competitively awarded financial assistance. And this framework is supported by the local designated Clean Cities coalitions who have their finger on the pulse of local market conditions and priorities and access national resources to provide unbiased information, tools, and experts to address any barriers and solve problems for stakeholders. Next. Clean Cities' goal is to cut petroleum use by 2.5 billion gallons by 2020. This is kind of an old slide of our 2013 milestone. We reached a placement of 1 billion gallons of petroleum, and we hope that by 2020 it grows to 2.5 billion gallons. And this all happens, obviously, just one vehicle, fleet, and community at a time. Next slide. So there are 100 local coalitions that serve as the foundation of the program. About 82% of the country's population lives inside of Clean Cities Coalition boundary, and each coalition is led by a coordinator who tailors projects and activities to capitalize on the unique opportunities in our region. Next slide. In coalitions is voluntary and draws on local stakeholders from both the public and private sectors, and includes fleets of all shapes and sizes. Next slide. So Clean Cities relationships and strengthen markets through our quarterly meetings, various training opportunities, workshops, webinars like this, other events. We supply information about funding opportunities from federal, state, and local agencies and other private sources, as well as assistance with funding applications. And at coalitions, we like to recognize our stakeholders and their efforts publicly through press releases, through other announcements, events, and our materials. Clean Fleet Partnership is one way Clean Cities is expanding its scope and offering support on a nationwide level. Today, the partnership is working with some of the biggest players in the transportation industry to adopt alternative fuels and fuel economy measures, and these fleets are setting the pace for others. As of this year, there are more than 25 partners, many of which are recognizable brands and names. Other national initiatives that you may want to check out are the Clean Cities National Parks Initiative and our Workplace Charging Challenge. Next slide. An important part of our program is providing information and education. So the Alternative Fuels Data Center, or the AFDC, is maintained by Clean Cities at the national level, and the website houses an extensive collection of information, data, tools related to all technologies and fuels in our portfolio. You can also find details about each fuel and some of the more widely used Clean Cities tools, like the Alternative Fueling Station Locator, a laws and incentives search, a maps and data tool, emissions and petroleum reduction calculators, among other things. In addition to the AFDC, Department of Energy also manages and maintains fueleconomy.gov, where you can find and compare different vehicles. Next slide. In addition to websites and online tools, Clean Cities develops and provides various printed materials that are also very useful, like overviews of the program and fuel-specific fact sheets, handbooks, case studies, various publications that are always available to our stakeholders and others. Next slide. The program also provides access to technical and problem-solving assistance. So the Technical Response Service is an inquiry response service available to stakeholders and others who have questions about Clean Cities portable fuels and infrastructure, and you can simply call or email the technical response service to ask questions, and they very quickly respond. For more complex issues, we have tire teams, which are industry experts available for technical problem solving related to vehicle and infrastructure development. For example, we do have a fleet in our region right now that is working with a tire team that used grant funding to retrofit a vehicle, and the company that retrofit did go bankrupt, and they're having issues getting it serviced. So the Tiger team is having to find mechanics and folks that can service these vehicles, even though the company that retrofitted the vehicle no longer exists. So that's just an example of how they are useful. Next slide. First, the last part of the program is a network of funding. Since 93, Clean Cities has funded more than 500 transportation projects nationwide through a competitive application process, and Clean Cities has distributed nearly $400 million in project awards, leveraged nearly $800 million in additional matching funds and in-kind contributions from other sources. In 2009, through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, we really had a certain popularity then. We were able to fund 48 projects totaling $314 million, and deployed more than 8,500 vehicles and built 1,500 stations. Next. So there are 3 coalitions that are in the eastern upstate region, but there are also another 3 coalitions throughout the state. But in the Capital Region, we are hosted by the Capital District Transportation Committee, and we include not only the 4 CDC counties, but an additional 8, so we are 12 counties altogether. We have over 85 stakeholders, and we displace about 1 million gallons of petroleum per year, and that has been growing each year. And also, we were first designated in 1999. Next slide. Some activities include vehicle demonstrations. If there is a new type of vehicle in the market, we will host the here and people to come and test it out, do ride-and drives, ask the manufacturer questions about the vehicle. We've hosted grant workshops we'll hear about later, like the NYSERDA EV truck voucher program. We've done training for installers on electric vehicle charging stations, first responder training for electric vehicles and other alternative fuels, and we have a series of compressed natural gas and building modification trainings. We've also hosted tours of local facilities that are of interest to our stakeholders. We've developed a regional charging station plan, which we're working on implementing. We're about to launch a workplace charging program where we're meeting with employers to encourage them to install charging stations for their employees, and some fun events like film screenings and other large-scale events. Next slide. So that's my contact information, and where we get unmute Barry and or Christina.
Well, it's interesting. We don't see them signed in. So
okay, so they maybe have numbers. I can just go over their slides for them, and
that would be great.
Dave Carr is the coordinator for Clean Communities of Central New York, and that is his contact information. And if you can go to the next slide, you'll see that his coalition was designated in 1995. They were originally hosted by the Central New York RP Authority, and since 2012, they've been hosted by the Syracuse University Center of Excellence. In 2015, they displaced over 2.4 million gallons of petroleum, and they currently host public access to public access CNG stations and 110 EV public access charging stations. And I tell you that he has worked in the alternative fuel industry for a very long time. He is incredibly helpful and a great resource, not only to his stakeholders, but often to other coordinators. And the slide is some information about Enter Clean Cities, which is based in New York City but goes up to the lower, the Hudson Valley, and it was designated in 2003. And they just over 25 million gallons of petroleum per year, and they have quite a few natural gas, biodiesel, 85 electric stations, and they are a standalone nonprofit. Next slide is Christina Patricia, the coordinator's contact information, and I believe we'll be able to provide all this information later to all the attendees.
That's right.
And in summary, Clean Cities provides assistance, information, and resources to successfully plan and execute alternative fuel vehicle and fueling infrastructure projects. And we're always available, and I hope that you reach out to us if you are looking to for assistance in either developing a clean fleet policy or purchasing vehicles or just getting some information. We'd love to help you.
Thanks so much. That's a terrific resource for us all to know about. Thank you so much, Jen Saponis. All right, our next speaker is Adam at NYSERDA. So I'm unmuting you now. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning. You.
Terrific, thank you. This is with the Clean Transportation Program of NYSERDA. Ooh, hold on, there we go. All right, Adam.
Thanks. So I just wanted to talk today about a few things that NYSERDA is doing that might be a good supplement to what Nancy and Jen have already spoken about, and I know that there are a bunch of questions that are coming in, and I can answer those. But I just wanted to focus on a little bit of what we do that's most relevant for the fleets part of the Clean Energy Communities program, at least right now. So, next slide, please. To date, New York State has made a lot of progress on electric vehicles, and you know, as Nancy mentioned, when we talk about electric vehicles, we're not just talking about the all-electric vehicles, but also plug-in hybrids, and there are now over 14,000 EVs registered in New York State, about 1,600 charging stations throughout the state, and we've been funding quite a bit of research over the years on new technologies, new policies, new business models for getting EVs out there, and that will continue in future. Next slide, please. We have a number of programs that may be of interest to communities, including an electric truck voucher program, the municipal charge station and EV deployments that the DEC is doing, and New York Power Authority has some good options on that front as well. And I saw Lionel on the attendee list from APA. He may be able to chime in a little later on that. And then we, as many of you know, we have an upcoming program at NYSERDA that will provide a rebate not just for municipal fleets, but for all EV buyers in New York State that we hope to launch soon. We have a website for the Charge New York program, which is our umbrella program for all of our EV exercises, and that website has a wealth of information for different audiences about all the different programs that we have run, a lot of data to help and resources to help you make decisions and learn about electric vehicles. And a lot of that came from the Transportation and Climate Initiative's EV Readiness Project. The Transportation and Climate Initiative is a multi-state group of all the states in the Northeast, and we received some Department of Energy funding a few years back to develop a lot of the resources that a lot of what I'm going to talk about came out of today. Next slide. So the one I wanted to touch, one program that I wanted to touch on, and that some may be interested in, is our EV truck voucher program. We offer incentives for all electric, so no gasoline, no diesel, just electric truck and buses. Depending on the weight of the vehicle, it ranges from it's 8% of the difference in the cost between the electric bus truck, and a traditional bus truck, up to a certain amount depending on the weight of the vehicle. The maximum that you can receive per vehicle in the program is $150,000, but it varies based on the size of the vehicle. There are 8 manufacturers that have vehicles that are qualified for the program. We expect that number to grow, and we have almost $8 million available for that program. I will warn you that we are not accepting applications for that program at this very moment. We are working through an extension of the program, and until that is all the paperwork goes through, we can't accept additional voucher requests, but we expect that to be lifted shortly, and I don't think that it should cause any issues there. Next slide. So we included a bunch of slides here. I'm not going to talk through all of them. I wanted you to have them to reference later, but there are a few of these that I think are particularly relevant. And these slides come out of the work that we did with Transportation and Climate Initiative. These resources are all on our website at the Charge New York website that I listed earlier. Next slide, please. Did the next slide come up? Okay, thanks. So what can municipalities do to encourage electric vehicle adoption? The planning function, and Jen mentioned that a bit, some of the planning that has been going on in the Capital District and across the state. There are build permitting, zoning, and parking rules that can all be updated and revised at the local level to encourage greater EV adoption. And those can be anything as simple as defining what zoning classifications are appropriate for EV charging stations of different types, to using your building codes to or parking ordinances or zoning ordinances to require wiring of new structures or new parking lots for EV charging. So there's a wide range there, and we've detailed a number of the options there. Site design is really important, and that's one of the things I'm going to touch on a little more, and especially as you're thinking about putting in charging stations. And also signage is really important for how people, not just how people find charging station, but how people use charging station as well. So next slide, please. The next few slides are ones I'm not going to talk to, but I just wanted to include the information for you. So if you keep going, next one, next one, next one, next one. Siting and design options, I just wanted to talk about this one for a moment. we have a few different recommendations for things to consider when you are designing and when you're thinking about putting in a charging station. How you play within a parking lot tends to be really important, not just for how people use it, but also for the cost to the site owner. You know, the installation costs for charging stations can be far higher than the equipment cost for the charging station, depending on how far it is away from the electrical source, whether you have to dig up pavement and repave, and so on. And so we've found that there are some best practices for siting a charging station within a parking lot, and not just for access, but also for maintenance. You want to make sure that you have thought about how these plows will get around a charging station. You don't want and how it's protected from snow plows, how it's protected from cars, how pedestrians may interact with it, especially if there are cords across sidewalks or things like that. So we have some good guides on our website, and including setting some municipal standards or recommendations that can be shared with the planning board or can be integrated into zoning ordinances or traffic manuals can help that process a lot. Next slide. I talked about a number of these, but there are a number of factors to consider as you figure you want to put a charging station. One that I will just mention that I did mention earlier is the last one on this list. EV, there are a lot of them. The number is growing, but they're not universal right now. And a good portion of the time, these charging stations may be in use, or are likely to not be in use. And we've gotten feedback from some folks that having a charging station in too desirable a location within a parking lot can actually be counterproductive, because if it's blocking people using those spots, they could get annoyed, or they be non-electric cars, gasoline-powered cars that end up being in those spots, and then they're not available to EV drivers when they show up. So, a number of factors to think about. Next slide, please. Also just wanted to touch on signage, because as you are thinking about putting in your charging station, signage actually can make a really big difference. Not just with how to find the station, and sometimes it's certainly helpful to have have signage from the road, but also sometimes within the parking lot. If it's a big parking lot and someone has to drive around the whole parking lot trying to find where the charging station is, it can help to have some signage within the parking lot, even where the charging station is. But then the other part of it that is really important are the signed rules about charging station usage. You can really how it's used based on this, and we've seen a real important difference between whether it says where sign says recommended for electric vehicles, or e-parking only, or e-charging only, because there may be instances where someone wants to park there but not actually use the charging station, even if they have an EV, and so a little forethought up front as you're putting in a charging station can be really helpful. That it relates to how you plan to whether you plan to charge people to use the station, and so how. Whether there's a hour-long grace period where the first hour is free and then after that you have to pay, or if you want to charge people by the kilowatt hour of electricity they're using, or by the hour of time they spend there, or so on. Sorry, next slide, please. We do have some resources on signage on our website as well. So my last piece of advice before I hand it over to the next speaker is on how to implement. Sorry, could you go back to the last one? Just that you don't have to go all in on everything all at once. You can try things out. You can do work on a few of these approaches and then others. You don't have to do it all at once. And consult with folks in your community as you normally would. Next slide. So these are a number of the sources on our website. And the next slide is, I think, just contact information if anyone has any questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great information. Our last speaker is Seth Lightman of a new program called Drive Electric Hudson Valley. How are you, Seth? You're unmuted, but you may be muted on your end, Seth?
Yes, and I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, can.
Oh, all right. Good. Well, I feel like Mariano Rivera right now on cleanup, so let's make this as quick as possible for Q&A, as they say. Just to give a little clarity to people, I worked in 1998 till the end of 99 at NYSERDA. I did Clean Cities, so I know the Capital District one, the one in New York, Capital District I managed. There were 7 of the 9 I managed back then, so I'm pretty for alternatives, but my passion is when I went to the Power Authority, and I worked there too, in electric cars. So we are creating this program called Drive Electric Hudson Valley, which wants to have incentives, awareness, education, drive infrastructure, and to get discounts from the car companies before even rebates. Go ahead, next slide. See me there in a Porsche 918 plug-in hybrid that's not available on the road, of course. But it was fun to be at. I'm one of the ways I'm able to get discounts or utilize my resource. I'm part of the International Motor Pool, so I test drive cars regularly. So they're willing to work with me in the state on any kind of thing, per se. We also have Hugo Jewell, who is our marketing coordinator, and Melissa Everett, who runs Point. I call her our running back because give her the ball and watch out. So, but we're out there to provide education, awareness of the different types of cars, incentives, tax incentives, credits, and vehicles available to people, and to make them a little bit more aware of just what's available. Because if you drive up there, there's not many of those cars, so people have questions. The one good thing, as we've noticed over time now, which is exciting, is that the events that we had, we've had people that it's been small to start, which usually happens, but educated people that want to do either a plug-in or an all-electric car. So doing that on the regular will drive, no pun intended, electric vehicles in Hudson Valley. Next slide. Hello. So I said before we can go through this a little bit, but I did a program with that car in the middle called the Think C. It was a small electric car, kind of about the size of a Smart car that had about 55 miles of it of range back then, and we launched this program after 9/11. There were stations that we put electric vehicle infrastructure in. This was a New York Power Authority program called the NYPA Think Clean Commute program, but I was the program manager, ran the program. So we had train stations at Huntington, Hicksville, Little Neck, White Plains, North White Plains, Chappaqua, and what is now called the Southeast train stations. So we've been working now which is exciting, with John and the MTA to collaborate on, awareness of these infrastructure spots at the train stations to start, right? But at the time, expanding other ones, help drive that infrastructure, because it's like that dreams thing, build it and they will come. So we had a program. It was a lease of $199 a month for the car. We used there was funding, a lot of funding from DOT and other sources, Clean Cities and NYSERDA as well, to drive this program home. We did transit checks as well, $21 a month for commuting, and we also gave them a $40 per month insurance reduction credit, which I'm glad to say, when we did our USDOE report on the program when I was there, we got like almost 75 to 80% participation rate, so they knew they would get them if they filled out the survey. Next. And we measured these cars after 9/11, small micro electric cars with bodies that looked almost like football helmets. So we're working, which is the best part of this program, is working with the Hudson Valley, with the organization I'm contracted with. And they did a program called Solarize, as we all know, in Hudson Valley, that I was originally on the call center for, and I'm now in this program. But the part of that is they've done in such a short period of time over 2.2 watts all around people's houses, and even a little bit combined business. But it's exciting to see when you create social change what you can do. So I live in Western County, so to be able to work with Sustainable Hudson Valley was like almost a no-brainer. Next. So the summary of the program, right, is we're doing this community education I talked about, doing the workshops. We're going to be at park and rides. We did a survey of over 200 plus EV customers, and we're just this demo, but we're looking to ramp up and scale up as part of this program, and we're seeing such momentum. It's very exciting. Fine. Just to give people an idea of the survey findings, and I don't want to go into it too much, but people are interested in electric cars. They want surveys. They want more people to gaze, as well as they want more workshops, community involvement, test drives, like that. So we're going to even do dealership events too in the future. Exciting about this, because we have car companies get on it, not just us. And we have even incentives with Ford Motor Company to start, meaning discounts. So if you're interested in doing this thing with DEC, which I heavily encourage, we've got a flyer we can give you that if you bring that to a Ford dealer anywhere in the state, and get that discount on top of a rebate, you'll be doing fine. Next slide. As I said, we've got so many public sector partners from Ulster County, Citizens Local Power, Sustainable Hudson Valley, NYSERDA's help, which I speak enough about, Connect, which is an infrastructure partner, and we're going to be reaching out to other partners as well. We, as Adam knows, we are very much in support of fast charging consumers to get a lot more comfortable with it. And time is up, but next slide. Best count. I'll leave it at that. If you need a high-res copy, that's the discount. I talked about this, so we'll leave it for scale up, and we're excited to enter that phase going into 2017 looking at the overwhelming municipal public authority, state, local, and federal interest in what we're doing as a demo is clear to us that there's drive for this. It's even exciting in the middle of our little pilot to see that Tesla was even putting fast chargers in Kingston, and I heard even Tarrytown. We'll talk about in the program about, incentives, but thank you.
Seth, great program, and I think we're going to get some questions about it. So I'm going to unmute who was a speaker, and just remember, we'll hear noises, so if you need to mute your phones or anything like that. Melissa, I think you're unmuted. Do you have some questions from our audience?
Yes, I do. So one of the common questions is related to the estimated average cost of a fueling station to meet the requirements of the program. So not sure who's best to answer that, but if you can kind of go over some of the costs in, general, that would be helpful for the crowd.
I can take that one. This is Adam Reuter from NYSERDA. We've helped to put in about 700 charging stations around the state, and have kept good tabs on how much they typically cost. The equipment itself, so the charging station itself, single charging station, so one that has one plug on it, costs somewhere in the $2,000 to $4,000 range typically, and a double is somewhere you about double that, between $4,000 and $8,000, depending on how much technology is involved, it included, and everything. Most of the stations, especially for public use, will be networked stations, so that they can connect to a back office network, and you can track data and charge people to use them, or not, but you can at least have that option. And so to have that networking capability, there's usually a monthly fee of somewhere around $20 a month. The installation costs, as I was talking about in my presentation earlier, can be very low. They can be very high. It really depends on where you're installing them and how you're installing them. We've seen installations go in for $1,000 or $2,000. We've seen installations that cost $15,000, and that, the good thing is you do have some influence over how much it costs. You can lower the cost by making some good decisions, but it can vary pretty widely. So generally, my rule of thumb, though, is that per port, per plug, when you add in the equipment cost and the networking cost and the installation cost and maybe an extended warranty, it can be somewhere in the $5,000 to $10,000 per plug. So if you do a dual, it could be somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000, and if you single, it would be $5,000 and $10,000. And the EC program covers 80% of that, or $8,000 per plug.
Adam. So I did get a number of questions as well on municipalities charging for the charging stations. So the questions were, can a municipality charge a fee for users to use the charging station? And they do, does it affect the available funding to that municipality?
We'll speak to that in terms of the DEC rebate.
Yeah,
So this
thank
Nancy, the municipality may choose to charge users for the electricity costs. We don't have a problem with that. You can also choose to give it away for free. And when I mentioned during my overview that up to 2 years of costs could be part of your rebate request, we elected to do that so that if municipalities wanted to offer the electricity, the cost of the charging to the public for free initially in order to, get people using them and incentivize,
Right.
deployment of EVs, that could help defray those costs. We're also willing to support the same thing up to 2 years of the networking costs. What you have to do is in your rebate application demonstrate to us that you've thought through your operations and maintenance and any costs that you'd plan on charging moving into the future.
Nancy. I have a question for Des. Do you only work in the Mid-Hudson region with customers in the Mid-Hudson region, or do you assist with inquiries throughout the state?
Throughout the state, but I'd like to coordinate through Sustainable Hudson Valley, but them because they're my team. But yeah, we're yes. Feel free to reach out. I have a consulting company. Sure.
Okay, good. Now, and just so everybody knows, this PowerPoint will be shared along with the agenda, so you will have the contact information for all of the panelists and their programs. Their question also for Nancy regarding heavy vehicles. So you mentioned that heavy vehicles were eligible, highway type pickup trucks and plows, cement, and you and the municipality go through like an OGS bid.
To be clear, I don't know that I specifically said that, trucks and heavy vehicles were eligible. So here's what I'll tell you. As part of the eligible vehicle definition, one of the criteria that I didn't list on the slide, but that is in the legislation, is that an eligible vehicle is rated at not more than 8,500 pounds gross vehicle weight. So I'm not an expert on all the vehicle models, but I know that right around there you might be cutting off between, say, your light-duty trucks and then maybe some heavier pieces of equipment. So if your vehicle can meet the definition in the legislation in the request applications, then it's eligible. In general, a heavy-duty type of truck might not make it because of the weight requirement. Some of the other pieces of specialized municipal equipment might not be eligible because of the requirement that they be primarily for use on, streets, roads, highways. So I think that gets to most of the first part. There was about the OGS marketplace. I think that would be a viable mechanism to make the purchase. I would say give a call and let's talk through the mechanism.
Just jumping in on that one, I think for medium and heavy duty vehicles, and any of those would be over 8 pound GVWR. They would qualify. All electric vehicles would qualify for the truck voucher program that I mentioned, and will get a significantly higher amount of money through that than the light duty vehicles get through Nancy's program. So our program would cover the heavier vehicles. Nancy's program covers the lighter vehicles, and The one thing I should mention is that the voucher program currently is not available in all counties of the state, just 30 of the 61 counties, I believe, which are generally the ones in and around higher population centers and the ones that had previously been considered non-attainment areas for air quality.
Trying to jump in there, Adam. This is Robin. Just wanted to clarify that it might have been so I said about medium or heavy duty vehicles, in that if there is an alternative heavy or medium or heavy duty vehicle that is an alternative vehicle, it can apply to the Clean Energy Communities program. So if a community does engage with that action for heavy or medium duty, then it would qualify as having an action completed under the Clean Energy Communities program.
Okay. And then I have one more question, and then I'll check and make sure that no others have come in. So for the DEC program, are you able to give any numbers on how much has been applied for already to date and how much money is still available?
I can't give you exact numbers, mostly because I just don't have access to all of the information prior to municipalities actually submitting a final rebate application. But I will say that there is, at this time, plenty of money still available. I have about 20 different municipalities with pending applications. Like I say, I don't have access until it gets submitted to the information about how much of a rebate request is associated with each of those. So don't hesitate to apply. There is money. Earlier is better, but you know you're not in danger right now of exhausting the fund.
One last question did come in, and that is, do the current utility EV charger service class rates include a highway tax?
Paying highway fuel taxes on electricity used for electric vehicles.
Thank you, Adam. And that is all I got on questions from the group. Those are good questions. Thank you so much for submitting them. And as we mentioned, we are sending PowerPoints and we are sending the agenda with everyone's contact and video so that you're familiar and you can connect with everyone and ask more specific questions that are related to your municipality.
Melissa, and thank you to all our speakers. Great job. We'll be signing off. So we're going to be having one of these webinars quarterly, and hear from us again, and look out for the slides in a subsequent email from us. Thank you all very much. Bye now.